Una Smith reporting there. Well, that basic problem that the government appears to have nowhere to house people coming into our country has led in recent months to the issue of housing migrants becoming centre stage and very divisive in places like Ballinrobe, Carlow, Roscrea, and right now it's Roscrea, after 160 asylum seekers have been housed in the only local hotel, Racket Hall. Paul Murphy went to Roscrea yesterday to get a sense of what's going on there and to hear the views of the protesters and the views of other local people.
Gardaí yesterday providing a corridor through demonstrators outside the Racket Hall Hotel in Roscrea. It wasn't the reception that the over a dozen women and children seeking international protection might have expected, but protesters say that they were not to blame.
I didn't put those kids in those positions. The Gardaí put those children in those positions. The people who brought them in put them in those positions, not me. So as much as it's terrible to see children upset and children frightened. I think of my own children and I wouldn't like those to be in those situations. But I didn't put them in that situation. That's in the hands of the government and in the hands of the guards that were here today.
It was a horrible, horrible scene from both sides.
But it could have been avoided if you didn't block the way of the bus to get into the hotel.
Well, we had told them we would be blocking the way. We told them there would be a human barricade. We said we're saving our hotel. We don't want this to happen. So they knew. They knew. And this is why the roads were blocked and all those guards were brought in.
We tried to block the gate, yes. But we told them we were going to do this, Paul, you know.
But do you have a right to block the gate?
Do we have a right to block the gate? Well, whether I have a right to block the gate or not, Paul, is one question, OK? What this government don't have a right to do is drop people in this town when there's no services from them.
We asked An Garda Síochána to comment on allegations that they were heavy-handed in their dealing with protesters. In a statement, they said that aside from a minor isolated physical confrontation, the operation by An Garda Síochána and the attending people gathered were predominantly very peaceful. Last night, around 150 people gathered in peaceful protest despite the freezing temperatures. A handful of those associated with the far right were present, but they played no obvious role. This was very much a protest dominated by locals. So why were they there?
We're protesting because the fully functioning hotel has been shut down. It's not about the people coming in because they need somewhere to go. I mean, see them families there today, it was heartbreaking. But they've shut down a fully functioning hotel. There's nowhere for weddings, there's nowhere for funerals.
It wasn't closed because it was a hotel that, there was never anybody in. It was a really good live music venue. Dan McCabe was supposed to be playing here in a couple of weeks, Pat Short. You don't bring those acts into hotels that are failing.
I mean, the government would say these people need to have somewhere to stay. There's a legal obligation to give them somewhere to stay.
That's fair enough. I have no problem with them coming into the country whatsoever, because everybody needs somewhere to go, but you don't come in and shut down a business to do it. It just doesn't seem right. Why would you do it?
Roscrea already has 2 other centres which accommodate hundreds of people seeking refuge, mostly Ukrainians. That's a significant impact on a town that in the 2022 census recorded a population of just over 5,500 people. Protesters say that opening the Racket Hall Hotel as another centre for up to 160 asylum seekers will only put more pressure on already squeezed services.
We don't have services for them. We don't have doctors. You can't get into a hospital. You can't get into a dentist.
There's a GP here that has hundreds and hundreds of patients, is going to be retiring in the next year and a half, so that's going to be a massive disaster. I have a specialist appointment on the 28th. I rang last month for blood tests, which have to be done fairly quick because they'd have to have the results in, and I have to wait 3 weeks to get my bloods done.
From a local GP?
From a local GP.
And in terms of 5 years ago, what would that have been?
Oh, you would have rang up and you would have been told to come down that day. On the same day, yeah.
Another commonly voiced sentiment among the protesters is that the newcomers have diminished the sense of safety in the town.
You talk to any elderly person out here tonight and ask them, do they feel safe walking in the streets of Roscrea? No, they don't. They feel intimidated. And that's no offence to these boys, but they're coming in, we don't know them, they're not vetted.
This fear may be genuinely held, but Gardaí say they do not detect any significant increase in crime related to those staying at refugee centres across the country. And regarding Roscrea, An Garda Síochána told Primetime that it has not seen any increase in recorded crime or public order incidents associated with centres in the town. On the contrary, An Garda Síochána understands that there has been very positive community engagement and relationships in Roscrea with those international protection centres. While the far right may have had a low profile at the protest, some of their conspiracy theories were echoed by local TD Matty McGrath, who told protesters on Saturday that the numbers seeking international protection in Ireland represented a colonisation.
The media told you hush it up, paint everyone as whatever. It's really a colonisation of our country. It's a takeover of our country.
The TD also told protesters that Leo Varadkar, Micheál Martin and Sinn Féin were taking orders from the World Economic Forum, a baseless claim sometimes made by conspiracy theorists. Last night, demonstrators told Primetime that they plan to continue the protest.
We're not going anywhere for now. We will be here, and I can't tell you any more than that. I can't tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. I can't, none of us know that. But for now, we are here, and we'll be here for as long as it takes to get our message out there.
But the images of people seeking international protection having to be shepherded by Gardaí, including a child in a woman's arms, will likely live long in memory.
Do you think people will look back in a few years and think that this wasn't a worthwhile thing to do, to block the road to the bus carrying women and children?
No, I don't. No. Roscrea has had enough.
Today, as locals brought toys to what has become Roscrea's newest asylum centre, people in the town centre had generally sympathetic, though mixed views on the protest.
God help them, they're probably coming from a terrible place, and my heart does go out to them, but it's not the people, or it's not the children, or it's not the women, it's the fact they're protesting because of the lack of facilities that we have in the town already. Like dentists and doctors.
Roscrea is only small, it's a small town, everyone knows everyone, and you walk down the street now and I'd say you know about 5 people out of everyone you see on the street.
The hotel is the last, it was the last working hotel in the whole town. There's loads of empty places around town they could have used. There's a hotel right there that's empty.
Everybody deserves a home. There's Irish people living all over the world, and they were welcomed into the countries, and why shouldn't we welcome people here? I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's right. I think everybody deserves a chance. I think people are angry the fact that there's Irish people that are homeless, and the government, I blame the government, that they're not doing enough for the Irish people.
That report from Paul Murphy in Roscrea. Well, I'm now joined by Minister Thomas Byrne here in studio, and from Castlebar by Councillor Michael Kilcoyne. Michael, I'll come back to you in a short while. First of all, Minister, there's news breaking tonight about a hotel, the disused one, Grants, in the centre of the town, that the government may be about to buy it. Can you explain this to me?
Well, look, there's agreement in principle that a community hotel could be established in Roscrea, a community-owned hotel. There is already a model for this, apparently, in County Monaghan. It's designed to give the type of facilities that hotels do give to towns. And I know that Deputy Jackie Cahill and Councillor Michael Smith, in particular, had discussions with Minister Roderick O'Gorman today. And I want to thank them for the leadership that they have shown in trying to get practical solutions to this. It's very easy to protest, very easy to shout. But if you actually want to get solutions for the community, that is a genuine issue in the town, the lack of a hotel. And hopefully this can be solved now if the department
Well, it's obviously, with the greatest respect, a bit late to say that it's an issue about the hotel, because it's your government that's taken over their only hotel. But to stick on this community hotel, what is a community hotel, and are you going to buy the disused Grants Hotel?
Well, look, I'm not going to get into the details of any possible purchase, but there is agreement in principle that a community hotel...
What does that mean?
Well, in the sense that this issue has arisen over the last few days, clearly there's a great need for the facilities that a hotel offers to the community. This is clearly a major bone of contention in the community, and the Minister has listened to what Jackie Cahill and Michael Smith have proposed, and I'm confident that this will be acted upon, and there is already.
Isn't that exactly what's wrong with the government policy? Wait a second, it's so cack-handed. You're sitting there, to be honest, saying, this place, Roscrea, needs a hotel. But your government has just taken away its hotel. Did you not think about that?
Look, the reality is that there are huge numbers of people travelling all around the world, moving to other countries. Some of them are coming to Ireland. It's almost impossible to predict what the numbers of people are.
That's not the question I asked you.
We saw in the VT report there, for example, someone who paid €10,000, scandalously, to human traffickers, and that's going on all over Europe. The government doesn't have means to predict how many people are going to arrive in seeking international protection. But at the same time, the government has a legal obligation, and indeed a moral obligation, when people present themselves here, to try to do something about it and to provide accommodation to them. And as you can see, that's really, really difficult, but it doesn't take away from the fact, as the UNHCR rightly says, there's a legal obligation to do so.
I agree with that. There is a legal obligation. We all accept that. But on what basis, what criteria does your government use to say, let's take Roscrea? We heard, hang on a second, Paul Murphy there. Population Roscrea about 5,500. They've already 400 in the convent. They've 200 in Shanross Abbey. On what basis did you decide you should take away their only hotel and put more asylum seekers there?
Look, I suppose the reality that's been facing the government, particularly over the last few months, but over recent years, is that people arrive, accommodation needs to be provided to them, and hotels have clearly made themselves available to the government when the government puts a call out for accommodation.
But do you have a policy? Do you have a clear policy?
That's not sustainable. The Minister is coming forward with detailed proposals now to deal with particularly those who are homeless, and we saw them in the report, to deal with them and to make sure that we're going to have that we have facilities, but they're going to be, like, they'll be controversial in themselves. I mean, this is not going to be easy, because what we're talking about is providing large reception centres to make sure that these people have a roof over their heads.
And I hear you're in tonight, obviously, the Minister having to bat this away. But at the end of the day, wait a second.
I couldn't be clearer that the government has a legal duty to house these people, and it's really difficult.
We know that.
It's really difficult.
What people are wondering is, do you actually have a clear policy? You've chosen somewhere like Roscrea, you've taken away their only hotel that functions, and now tonight you're saying, oh look, we'll buy the other hotel that hasn't been used since 2013 to give them back a hotel.
Well, I think that that's a reasonable solution to the circumstances. These are exceptionally difficult times that society is facing, that the world is facing. Unless we can stop all wars, we can reverse climate change immediately, people are still going to be moving, and at unpredictable rates. And the government, I'm not batting this away at all. We have a very clear legal obligation to house these people.
And I hear you.
And we're going to do that. And when people put their hand up, the government doesn't go in there. We don't have compulsory purchase powers to take over hotels. People put their hand up and say, my place is available.
Admission, Minister, that it was wrong. Wait, it was wrong to close that hotel, Racket Hall, because now you're accepting Roscrea needs a hotel. So it's a bungled policy.
I don't think it's bungled policy. I mean, the policy is very clear that we've legal obligations under the...
Close a hotel and then buy another one the next day?
No, we have legal obligations to house people. And when the accommodation is provided, people are put into that accommodation, which, by the way, is women and children that are being protested there at the moment as we speak. I personally wouldn't protest against children, and I'd urge people to think again about that. I think it's wrong. But at the same time, the government has to do this. We have to find places to put these people in. We have the situation that you outlined at the start of the programme, with hundreds of people essentially on the street or not in state accommodation. That's not sustainable.
But just before I bring Michael Kilcoyne in, earlier today the Taoiseach said that the 10 areas that have the most asylum seekers, most under pressure, are going to get more resources. Do you know which 10 areas those are? Has the government any idea which area has the most issues? Because if you'd known that, maybe you wouldn't have closed Roscrea's hotel.
Well, there already has been significant extra resources put into education, put into health, to deal with people, especially from the Ukrainian side, language resources, extra teachers into schools. There's been a fund to help communities who've taken on big numbers of refugees.
But the Taoiseach accepted today there wasn't enough, because he's willing to give more.
I absolutely agree with him, but what's happened is, since previous funding rounds of the Community Recognition Fund were put out, there's been more people have come into the country. So that has to be recognised. And by the way, can I say this, despite the protesters getting all the airtime, there are many more people all around this country working every single day with refugees, with Ukrainians, with people who are applying for international protection, providing education services, health services, community services. But, you know, there's far more of them than there are protesters.
Michael